Guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I'm really excited about today's guest, Kyle Mao. And he is actually a digital nomad. He's living in Poland now, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But I'm really happy to have him on the show. He's the founder of HireUA. It's an online business expert and Selo Olive partner. We'll find out more about this. And he specializes in overseas recruiting and building successful global ventures. So I'm really happy to have him on the show. So Kyle, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, like I said, I'm always scouring the globe looking for individuals such as yourself. The more I look to like Europe and Asia, they're like outpacing the United States. So talk about your background and your story and how you got started.
Yeah, so I was just one of those people working a corporate job. I was an engineer, and I think we're going to get into this, but I became pretty disillusioned with the overall corporate job simply because I didn't want to be sitting at a desk from 9 to 5 every day. So I started moving abroad. I built a couple online businesses, and now, like you said, I'm in the outsourcing space. And I really believe like that a lot of small business owners and medium business owners and online business owners really kind of get the short end of the stick when it comes just to regulations and taxes and government, and the high cost of living in the States is just out of control. So a lot of what I've done has all been based around those general philosophies.
Yeah. I love that. And just the more I get out of the States, the more I see like there's more to the world than just the United States. And it's just like there's people doing like really fantastic things we can't do here. And so first thing we'll get started is this idea of what was this you've done all these ventures in Eastern Europe and especially Ukraine, which is now undergoing war, but kind of talk about, a lot of people are listening to this and they're scared. They've got a mortgage, they've got a car, they've got student loan, they got a house, they got a spouse and kids. So how do you, how do you untangle yourself from all of these and just, get unstuck?
That's a loaded question. And I would say go back in time and undo some of the stuff, not maybe, not all of it, but I was fortunate enough that I was young. When I first went to Europe, I was 21 years old, and I said, hey, this is what I think I want to do with my life is go abroad. And so I was able to set that goal and not, be building anything too permanent as far as roots in the States. So made it easier for me, obviously, I put my roots down here. But I think the big thing is waking up and realizing that all of this stuff, and you can talk about who it is, who is they? Is it the corporate overlords? Is it the Illuminati? Is it, oligarchs? But society in the States, no matter who is the puppet master, it's designed to put you in a world of just debt and never ending and never being able to really get out of that. You get the house, you get the car, you got all the taxes, you have all these different costs that just drive up the cost of living, and then you just have to work to live. And that's so common. So the biggest thing I could say is take a step back, start cutting stuff where you can, and just try to get out from under at least some of it. And then if you really still want to, make moves like that, you have more
Yeah.
flexibility.
Yeah, I love that because this it brings back so many because I know I've had a previous guest. He had a wife and kids, and he's like F it, I'm done with this, and he moved his entire family from Europe to Latin America, and just he built
Wow.
and that that's and he was an engineer too, and then it was interesting because I was listening to this podcast by Ken Griffin, and he's talking about when you're young in your 20s, you don't have all these entanglements and you can take risks. You have time to take risks. So start a business and, quit your job, do these experience early. So, later on, because we have long life expectancy. So, fantastic advice. So one thing talking about is you built a global business from Europe, and with HireUA, what's been your strategy in showcasing talent to Western companies, and what unique challenges, rewards have you encountered in this cross-cultural business landscape?
So HireUA is my recruiting firm that places talent from primarily Ukraine as well as other parts of Eastern Europe with Western businesses. And it's kind of been an alternative to like the traditional virtual assistant outsourcing markets where most people go to India, they go to the Philippines. And I think the unique challenge has really been like meshing those cultures together because you have one business owner from America who's got a certain way of doing things, and you've got someone from Ukraine. So the goal is to kind of get them together, and that's always going to be a challenge, but it's been extremely rewarding simply because I've been able to help so many people, with the company, and so many, Ukrainian people that have been displaced by the war, any other, just terrible situations that are obviously going on there. So it's been really rewarding to actually give people, a good income stream, a steady income stream, and be able to also help the business owners. Because I know people in the States are like, it's so expensive to hire anybody these days, and they sometimes don't show up, and the interviews don't go very well, and people just don't really seem to want to work these days. So I think it's double-sided. We're helping both of them, which is really rewarding.
And that reminds me of another, we were talking about just hiring talent because either they're really crappy or they're A plus and they just leave very quickly. Yeah, it's quite interesting.
It's tough. It's ain't easy out there. If you're like an American business owner, like it is not a kind place right now.
Yeah. Um, so then you also talked about this Selo Olive story and tell people what this is. It looks like it's a Croatian olive oil company. And what lessons in this venture have influenced your approach to HireUA and other business endeavors?
So the one lesson I really took from that, so that's an olive oil company. It's a physical product. And a bottle of olive oil sounds very, very simple, right? It's a bottle full of oil. But you'd be surprised how many little things go into that bottle between, getting the oil to the bottling center and then getting it bottled, getting it packaged, labeled, shipped, heat sealed, and then, of course, getting actually to the customer itself. It's glass, you have to protect it. So the first thing I would say is, physical product businesses are really tough, and I don't recommend that anybody starts them. But also just persevering, because when we got that thing off the ground, my business partner Martin and I, we did it in his garage where we were bottling it ourselves. So we had like an assembly line built in his garage. One of us would bottle, pass it on, heat seal the top, put the cork in, label it, put it in the box, and then every day we were driving it to the post office. So that was what I really took, is like, if you want to build a business, you
Yeah.
just sometimes got to sit down and get your hands oily, no pun intended, and just power through whatever it is. And that was like a week straight of being up to like 3 a.m. in the garage, just bottling olive oil. And it was hard physical work, actually,
Yeah.
compared to what I'm used to doing, which is just typing on a computer all day. So that's the lesson I really learned from that company.
Yeah. That's I love that story because there was the story of the Airbnb in Jogebia, and then they like one point they didn't have any customers, so they were selling Obama was like just getting Cheerios and putting them in the boxes, and they had to like ship it out. The What I really love is you have this time, location, financial, emotional freedom. This concept of lifestyle of a permanent traveler and family man. So, how has living in Europe for over 7 years as a permanent traveler and father shaped your views on work life? And what advice would you give to entrepreneurs considering a similar lifestyle shift?
Well, if you're like an entrepreneur who has total location flexibility and you want to go abroad, I'm not going to say you should or shouldn't take your family. You've got to weigh the pros and cons, like how old are your kids? There's so many different variables that would come into a decision like that. And my daughter's only 1 year old, so I don't really feel like I'm super qualified to talk about this. But, my wife is from Ukraine, so moving to a place like Poland makes it that's not a huge cultural jump, in this case. So it's
Yeah.
all just about what you're looking for. I would say kids would get a lot from traveling and learning about new cultures and experiencing something different. But it's certainly not easy by any means. I think by the time this episode releases, I'll be in Dubai for a couple of weeks, and that's going to be one of our first like vacation trips with a 1 year old. So I have no idea how that's going to go. But
Uh-huh.
we were in California for a little while, and we
Uh-huh.
moved with a kid and a dog from California to Poland. So it is possible. I'm not going to say it was fun. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it certainly can be done. It all just depends what you want. The one thing I would really stress about Europe that is different than the States is the walkability. So I don't think, when I was growing up, and I don't know about you, but I would assume the same thing. Like we used to go play outside and we used to go ride our bikes, and we would say, be home by sundown or be home by dinner, but you could ride around the neighborhoods, you could ride between friends' houses. And I don't think people do that in the States anymore. I I don't think they do. I don't think kids are really like going outside and playing by themselves. I don't know if it's because they'd rather be on a computer,
Uh-huh.
or it's because people are just paranoid because there's just so much going on. People don't do that anymore. And here, you could send your 10-year-old on a tram or a metro by themselves in a lot of cases, and they would be perfectly fine. They could go meet a friend on the other side of the city. So that walkability and that European lifestyle of having everything be a lot more condensed is really cool in my opinion. And I think a lot of people would just benefit from that in general.
Yeah, I love that. And slowing down and the other especially from a American centric viewpoint, it's very interesting when you go abroad and you see that the rest of the world keeps moving. They don't really care, like they don't really care about United States. It's like they have their lifestyle and people are a lot happier and just laid back. And then you come back to the States and everybody's like honking and beeping and pushing and shoving and it's like
Mhm. People, I don't know, something has just gotten in the water in the States in the last few years, man. I think like the 2016 election probably really made people just tense and angry. But
yeah,
yeah, everyone's always just rushing, like you said, honking, angry, pissed. Everyone's just not happy in the States. And I
yeah.
don't know what it is. I don't know how it can be fixed, but it's just the reality of it now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting. And so, what are some like you chose Poland, presumably because of your wife, but what are some other really areas that are hubs for creatives and digital nomads and just people looking for a better quality of life, either Europe or I'm not sure if you can comment on Latin America, but talk about that.
So in Europe, obviously Poland's a big one. Hungary, Budapest, Prague, Czech Republic. Those are probably the biggest ones in Europe, and they've all got their own pluses and minuses, and will all be relatively similar in comparison to like Latin America. So I think as far as Latin America, there's a few countries, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia come to mind, Mexico. I have a couple of friends that have kids in Mexico now. So it's really just about what you're after and if you kind of like that culture more. Like I would obviously love to trade the winters here for that Latin American weather that they have a lot of the time, but
Yeah.
to me it's not worth that trade-off of necessarily having to worry about, oh, am I bringing too expensive of a phone in my pocket while I'm walking down the street? Like I wouldn't want to live my life that, on a daily basis. I'm not saying that it's super dangerous or anything of the sort, but it's just not how I want to do it, especially with a kid. So yeah, those are the two hubs. And then Southeast Asia, of course, has always been a hub. Bangkok, Bali, it's all about what you want long term. If you're gonna be a digital nomad, like go everywhere, see everything, then obviously do that. I think the conversation changes when it's like, I'm gonna live here forever, because a lot of people might, move to say Bangkok and live in a high rise with a big, beautiful pool and deal with 100-degree humidity or 100 degrees, 100% humidity. But then when it's like, oh, I'm gonna do that all year, every year, the rest of my life, then they start being like, oh, I don't know about that. So it's all about where you are in life and ultimately what you want to get out of life, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, it's here in Texas. The summers are so brutal that, my wife and I, we just get out of the state because it's just so, and which brings me to another. I was listening to this podcast by Raul Powell, and he's kind of talking about what you're talking about is like he was in London and this bustling city, everything's so expensive, and he's working at like as a Goldman Sachs, he's got an income, but it's not going anywhere. So he moves to Spain, he buys a small villa, and he's like, I could retire here. I don't need to do this hustle bustle. So I think for a lot of the audience, the kind of this mindset of just I think it's called geographical location arbitrage, and so you're just kind of profiting off the difference and really interesting. How can people follow you and reach out to you and check out your work, etc.?
Yeah, if you're an online business owner actively looking to hire, go to hire-ua.com. And then I write daily emails for, business people, about travel, business, variety of different topics. And that's at hire-ua.com/email. And then my YouTube is at Kyle Mao.
Yeah,
One last note, just about the
yeah,
prices that you were just talking about.
yeah,
It's crazy, like how much I would say I live on like what 20% of what most people would in the States.
yeah, and
And
especially
and
like
I'm getting
California.
more for it.
It's especially California. I mean, that's like your. I mean, I'm pretty sure pretty much your paycheck goes to paying tax, state, and federal income. It's kind of a waste of money. But I mean, you got great weather and great food. So if you can find that elsewhere, so
Yeah. I just remember I was making like $86,000 in California. This was
yeah,
10 years ago, so that's probably absolutely nothing now, but I only took home like 4,400 a month.
wow,
Like, and my rent was two.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is this? This doesn't make any sense. And that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
really one of the reasons I got so disillusioned with it.
Yeah. And it's being wasted on wars and, wasted on like all these, dumb, stupid regulations and all these, like, and our roads are crappy, and it's like,
Last week, and I don't know what it was, but I just flat out said, I'm like, I don't think I've ever actually gotten anything from my taxes or the government. Like, I feel like they just take it. I don't actually get anything. And
yeah,
people will be like, they build roads, they maintain the roads. I'm like, yeah, but they're full of traffic and there's potholes everywhere. So like,
yeah.
I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah. And it seems like they're always trying to like impede progress. Like somebody comes out with something new and they're like trying to shut it down. So,
I just remember this one story I heard once that a friend of mine told me. He said the Japanese offered to come into California and lay track over the existing Amtrak lines and build a bullet train from San Francisco to LA
yeah.
that could be there in 2 hours. And they said it would take them like 10 years to do it. And California said, nope, we'll do it ourselves. It'll be done in like 2050. I have
Yeah.
no idea if this is a true story or not. Someone told me, but it sounds completely plausible. And of course, they've done nothing on it and it will never be done.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I love that voting with your feet and voting with your money. And, that's us. We have freedom of choice. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on. And I
Thank
really,
you.
yeah. And then for all the audience, be sure to give Kyle's a social like and follow. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.